everyone, I'm Stephanie Weaver. I'm here in Quarantine Kitchen in San Diego with Microwave Boy on the camera. Hi, Microwave Boy.
Hello, Steph.
And today I'm going to be talking about essential kitchen tools. So this is going to be a three-parter. Today I'm going to be talking about basically tools and implements that would be helpful for you to have if you're going to be cooking and we're all going to be home for long periods of time. I'll tell you what's sort of essential and what are nice to have. So if you don't have some of these things in your kitchen, you can decide whether or not you want to order them. And I would consider right now ordering from a kitchen supply store as opposed to trying to order from a place like Amazon, which is slammed and they're only shipping what they consider essential things. So let's start with some real basics. And this is based on some conversations I've been having with people online. Everybody seems really distracted right now. Totally normal. I'm also really distracted.
I'm distracted.
Had a rough night. Got up at 9. It's been a slow start to the day. So be gentle with yourself. But what that means when you're cooking is you need to set timers. So it's helpful to have a timer like this in your kitchen. But if you have a smartphone, you have a timer on that. If you have a microwave, there's a timer on that. And if you have a stove, there's a timer on that. So if you need to set 2 timers to remind you that to go stir something, to not step away, to make sure that you're checking on the cookies in the oven or whatever, go ahead and set those timers. And those all come with those appliances. You don't have to buy that. That's not essential to buy. Next up, I would say, is a cutting board, and the largest cutting board that will fit on whatever counter surface you have. And you want a cutting board that's has like a relatively soft surface. The reason for that is like a really hard cutting board will dull your knife really, really quickly. And then the 2 knives that you need in your kitchen.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
All right. What about a wood? Why that instead of like wood?
So a wooden cutting board is fine, but you don't want like bamboo's really hard. Some people I've seen are like cutting on marble cutting boards. That's going to dull your knife super quickly, and a dull knife is not fun to use.
And is there a difference between like bacteria and stuff like that too?
Well, they all need to be cleaned, and plastic can, once it gets scratched up, can hold bacteria. So we use that Clorox cleaning spray to clean it. But I tend to use these versus a really hard cutting board. And whatever's the biggest one, a lot of times they'll come in a set of 3. I rarely use the smaller one, so really if you can just buy the biggest one that'll fit on your counter is the one that's going to be helpful, because you want enough room to do that nice chopping motion with your big chef's knife, and a small cutting board just doesn't allow you to do that. So let's go on to knives. A lot of times people will buy one of these knife blocks, guilty as charged, with a whole set of knives. They come with usually 6 steak knives and a serrated knife, which is good for bread, but that's all and citrus, that's all you cut with it. Usually has sort of a chef's knife and then has some smaller knives. What happens is they're usually not super good quality, and most of these knives you end up not using at all. So I would encourage you to just, if you're going to invest, the best quality knife you can afford, and ideally you want to actually try it out in a store, which isn't possible right now, but sort of guesstimate like what's going to feel like the right size in your hand. If you have smaller hands, you want a smaller chef's knife. I use this almost all the time. And then the only other knife you actually really need is the paring knife, and that's for small close work, like cutting out the core of a tomato, some peeling, some fine chopping, but most everything you do with this.
And didn't you tell me that the different types by brands or whatever they're sharpened in a different way?
Yeah, thank you. So these are Wusthof, I think. Oh wait, these are Wusthof. So these are German or European knives. So Wusthof always has these cool little like rivets in there. This is a Wusthof sharpener. They're actually sharpened at a different angle than the Japanese or Asian knives, which are at a slightly, I think these are, I can't remember now. One is like 12 degrees and the other's 15 degrees or something. So you actually need a different sharpener, which I did not know, or I would have just all bought the same kind. So this is actually a Wusthof hand sharpener, and if you're going to be cooking a lot, it is important to keep your knives really sharp. Not a high priority right now, but ideally, or you go take them once things get normal again, you take them to have them sharpened, which is what I used to do. I finally got tired of doing that. I finally bought an electric sharpener, which does both the Asian and the Western knives. But again, this is not essential stuff. If you're making a lot of bread, you do want a serrated edged knife. The only thing you cut with this is bread and citrus, because it's something that's got a hard outer edge and soft in the middle. But otherwise, you don't necessarily need that. So I'm trying to focus on just what people really need right now. Okay, so we've got timer, cutting board, chef's knife, paring knife, sharpener. All right, what else do you kind of really need? Vegetable peeler, super helpful. Next time you do a grocery run, just check out the tools aisle. They'll undoubtedly have one of these. I love the OXO brand because they're really easy to hold. They're really nice wide grips, but any brand is fine. And graters. So it's helpful to have a grater. You don't need to have 3 like I do. So this hand grater would be fine. If you're just going to buy one, the old school box grater is super helpful because it'll do fine, like hard cheese. You can grate potatoes or carrots, either very large or medium, and then it'll also slice. So this is a really basic product, but super helpful. And then you may have seen, lots of people love these microplane grater zesters. This is pretty high end. I do love it, but it's certainly not necessary. Either of these much cheaper tools is going to work just fine for you. Next up, you're going to need at least one big bowl to mix things in, to toss things in if you're making dough or anything. So if you're going to do that, consider how much storage space you have. We actually have a fair bit of room in this kitchen. Originally this kitchen was half the size, but at some point one owner added like another half room onto it. So we actually have way more space, but we don't have a ton of cabinet space. So every time I buy something, I have to think about where is it going to go. And a lot of people are in really small kitchens. So you don't need, a whole bunch of different kinds of bowl sets. But if you buy a bowl set, it's really helpful to buy one that has lids that snap on, because then you can use it for storing leftovers in the kitchen. And so, that's just helpful to know. You don't need the nesting bowl of, 6 or you don't need 6 sets of bowls. One set of bowls is fine. And these my sister Susan sent me for Christmas probably 30 or 35 years ago. At some point the edges are going to rust out and I'm going to be very, very sad, but for now they're awesome. I take food to parties once we've had parties again. They're great to carry salads in.
3 bowls in that set.
There's 3 bowls in that set, yeah. So there's a small, a medium, and a large. So if I have lots of leftovers, I'll put them in there. But it's also where I, mix up meatloaf or meatballs or cookie dough. Of course, cleaning it thoroughly in between those 2 things.
I don't think they're ever all in use at one time.
Rarely, because because then the refrigerator would be very full.
Right.
So, but a bowl set, and ideally one with lids. So if you're ordering stuff, that's something to think about and look at, because a lot of them don't come with lids, and the lids are super helpful. Okay, so let's talk about kind of mixing things. So if you're going to do spatulas, I use this thing every day, seriously. Like, to clean out the blender, to get stuff out of the bottom of a jar. I just love this. You can tell it's already starting to break down, but I just love this long, skinny spatula. In fact, one of them cracked, and I loved it so much I couldn't bear to throw it out, so I just kept the top. And I use this all the time, too, to, scrape stuff out of the small bowl that I'm using. So, of course, I'm a little obsessive, and I hate to waste anything. And then, a turner, or this is also called a spatula, flipper, turner. We use this every day for anything on a nonstick pan. You need to use one of these nylon tools so you don't scratch your pan. And then this wider spatula is super helpful for scraping a lot of stuff out. Sure, you can just have one that's smaller, but if you're buying 2, it'd be nice to have one this size and width. Okay, so we've got our spatulas, our wooden spoon, our vegetable peeler I already talked about, I think. Yes, and the graters,
Yep.
The bowl. Okay, so you do not need cling wrap and waxed paper and parchment paper and foil. It's helpful to have all those things if you cook a lot, but if you're just going to buy one of those things, foil. You can wash it, you can line pans with it, you can bake on it, you can wrap food up in it. It's None of these other things are recyclable. This is recyclable. If it's washed really well, you can put it in the recycling. I always buy the heavy duty because you can wash it, whereas the thinner stuff basically tears up and then it's worthless. But this is a great way, especially if you're utilizing pans that maybe have like a lot of sticky coating on them and stuff. Just line it with foil. It's just so much easier to get stuff out, to clean it up. Parchment is great if you're doing a lot of baking because you can line cookie sheets and other things with it. Doesn't stick. It's safe to about 415 degrees, maybe a little higher, but you want to be careful, so just keep that in mind. It is paper. You don't want it to catch on fire. If you're microwaving stuff, we always have a piece of this in the microwave that we reuse until it gets really gross, and then we finally
for splatter.
throw that to keep things from splattering. You never want to microwave anything in plastic. And then, I know we're all trying to use less plastic, but I do use a little bit of cling wrap now and again, so it's helpful. And then last two things on essential kitchen tools.
Thermometers?
Yes, thermometers and the colanders. So I'll talk about the thermometers first. So if you're going to be cooking meat, it's helpful to have a meat thermometer. These are probably $6 or $7. You stick it in the roast or the chicken or whatever before you start cooking it. You can set this little thing it'll tell you what's the safe temperature. So safe temperature for poultry is 165. You can slide this thing around unless it's completely stuck. Oh no, yeah, you can, but I clearly haven't cleaned this in a while. You can slide it so that when you open the oven and look, you can see is the green arrow pointing at that temperature. It's not an instant read. This is, you stick it in the roast or the chicken, and it tells you as it's cooking, it rises to that internal temperature, which is the safe temperature for that kind of meat. And it's nice because it has all the temperatures listed on here, so you don't have to look it up. The second one I would recommend, ovens vary widely in what temperature that they cycle through. So it's very helpful to have an oven thermometer that just lives in the oven. Set it kind of in the center of the oven towards the back, and then
top record.
In this center rack, kind of towards the back, and then you set your timer. Your oven will usually tell you when it's preheated. If it's an electronic, sorry, the dog, of course, Daisy, knows I'm talking to someone besides Microwave Boy, but she doesn't know who it is, so she starts getting wound up, and so she's whining in the other room. So that's what's going on, which is distracting, but it happens every time. So it's just important to check to make sure that your oven actually is hitting the temperature that you think it is, and that's why these are, I don't know, $6 or $7. So not too expensive, super useful to have so you don't ruin food. And then if you want to splurge, the instant read thermometers are really nice, but again, not necessary. So the way these work is you turn it on, you stick it into the food, and it will almost instantly tell you what that temperature is. And if you're checking, like especially poultry, you don't want to undercook it, so you can stick it in a couple different places and make sure it's hitting that 165. So those are that. So again, more essential, not essential, super helpful would be how I would rate those. And then last but not least, if you're going to be cooking pasta or steaming anything or cooking dried beans, you're going to need something to strain out that liquid. So if you have a really small kitchen, you can buy one of these. You just put it on the edge of the pan. You have to hold it really tightly and turn it slowly so the stuff doesn't spill over the top. But if you don't have a lot of space, this is a great implement to use instead of a colander like this. So I've had this one forever. This one's lost a handle. This one, ideally you want something more with a lot of holes as opposed to this guy, which I have to shake a lot to get water out of. So, but this is like, for me, I take this out to the garden to pull, vegetables, and then I bring them in the house. So if I was going to buy just one right now, if I didn't have any of these, I would probably buy this. But I do use this because, I'm only making 2 servings of pasta, so oftentimes I'll just pull this guy out because it's smaller, easier to clean. But if you don't have a lot of space, this is a great option. So that's your kitchen tools part 1, and I hope it was helpful. And I'm going to talk also, I'm going to talk in the 2 other parts about appliances and about kind of pots and pans. So stay tuned for those. Please share this video if you find it useful. Follow me on Facebook, Stephanie Weaver MPH, like miles per hour, except it means Masters of Public Health. I'm the author of the Migraine Relief Plan. And you can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at SWeaverMPH if you want to do that. So, but please share this if you find it helpful, because we want to I'm just trying to help people with these videos, and hopefully we'll get you all cooking and not burning your food, and making sure that you're safe in the kitchen. Oh, last thing, I reuse jars all the time. So this is great, like you can make salad dressing in this, shake it up, make a sauce in this. I ran out of my coconut aminos, but I washed this out really well, so if I need a shaker bottle. So those are just, that's free with the food, and then I reuse stuff. So those are just helpful to know, because those can be also helpful kitchen tools. See you again soon. Stay well. Bye.